How are we doing, guys? Welcome to another video on YouTube. Today's video is going to be all about adding seats to a car and also removing number plates or even making number plates extras. So let's get straight into the video. If you do like what you see, please do drop us a subscription or check us out live, twitch.tv/DeggyUK for more videos. Okay, so first things first, we want to add more seats to this car. There is actually only 2 seats in this car for some reason when there's meant to be 4. How do you do that? So on the hierarchy down the right hand side, you want to look for where it says seat D side F and P side F. That resembles the front 2 seats, driver side and passenger side front. What you then want to do is, like I have already done, is remove the doors so you can see a little bit easier and go to maybe a left or a right side of the car. We want to turn off pivot and also make sure that auto down the bottom is also turned off as well. Otherwise, you may come into some issues. Get rid of rotate at the top for now and make sure you've got X and Y axis added. You then want to go into the driver side and passenger side front, right click on them and copy. That will then create 2 identical dummies. From here, you want to change these 2 to R, so that means rear. If you are adding 5th or 6th seat at this point and you're watching the video, you want to make sure there's a 1 at the end of that. So it's R1, R1. And then if you're making a 7 and 8, for instance, R2, R2, and go from there. Now you have got them. You want to scroll right in so you can see where the dummies currently are. Hold Alt and select the 2. As you can see, they've now been selected. Go up to the top and turn off the Y axis. And you've only got the X axis then. And click move. You then want to drag from left to right into a fairly good position where you think is comfortable. You will start to get to know this as the more you do into what position's about right. But they always want to be sitting slightly above because their bum will be sitting on the seat then. And the dummy sort of represents halfway between the bottom of their leg and their top of their leg to where they're going to sit. Just be careful on some cars because as you can see, the roof starts to dip. You may start to see someone's head popping up the top. Obviously, you don't want that. So in order to counteract that, you can go onto the Y axis and move it down slightly. Or sometimes I've been known for rotating them slightly. So make sure the X and Y are added and click the rotate. And then you can rotate backwards slightly. And you want to see where the blue arrow is currently facing. That is sort of in line with the seat going down, which means they'll have a slight recline on them, which is kind of good in some aspects. And I've been known to do it quite a lot, especially in supercars and stuff like that, where they need an extra seat. It just means that you won't see their head popping up. But when they're in the vehicle, you can't see them unless the door is open. Now you've done that, you then want to make sure that from the top, it's okay as well. So some cars, the seats at the rear are actually slightly more in or slightly spread. You want to make sure they're still sitting in the center of the seat. So that's where you see the 2 dummies. You see the arrows. They are still sitting in the center. They are slightly off. So what I'm going to do is select the first one and then select the X axis again because you're going horizontal. And you want to, rather than rotate, you want to drag in. So that's on the left hand one. And then do the same with the right one. Drag that in slightly. Perfect. That means they are now sitting perfect in the center. That is how to add seats firstly. The second way of adding seats is going into, and this needs to correspond, you need to go into the data files of the vehicles.meta. On the vehicles.meta, I'm going to use an example of a car here. What we've just done is a car that has got 4 seats. What it may currently have is layout_low. Layout_low represents a GTA car that only has 2 seats. And it potentially is a lower ride car. You want to make it a standard car, which will have 4 seats. So you type in standard, layout_standard. And that is that. You may have found that the car itself already had the 4 dummies, but the car was still only having 2. I've found a lot of cars where the layout is still layout low, even though it should be layout standard, and that sometimes fixes the issue. So make sure you check that before you start going into Zmodeler. If you have, all good. As I said, layout low, it represents a smaller car that only has 2 seats. Layout standard represents a car that is a standard 4-seater at a standard height getting in and out of the car. Some cars, like a Bronco, a Wild Track, etc., are 4x4s and they sit slightly higher off the ground. The layout for that would be Ranger, or there may be other slightly different GTA standard layouts themselves, but the one that we use is Ranger. If a car has 6 seats, 8 seats, etc., there's a couple of different layouts that you can use. For 6 seats and more, you could potentially use the tour bus and they would get out themselves. However, if you've got a vehicle that you want to make them get out a certain way or get out the boot, etc., then you need to make your own vehicle layouts or find a vehicle layouts that actually works for you. Now, I'm just using this example. Someone has made 6 seats and they've put it on the rear and etc. And that is a layout 5x5 dubster, and that's how they've made it themselves. And then obviously that corresponds in the layout themselves. You need to make sure that is correct. Because if I was to change that to standard, that would then read a 4-seated car, not the 6-seater car. So it all depends, but that is a whole different video. However, the basics today, we've changed it. Layout standard means 4-seater. Okay, so now moving on to the number plate situation. Some cars have number plates where they're already attached on their own and they may say plates. Some cars makers actually include the plates in a certain texture, and some don't make a plate altogether. Now, this car here in front of us has a plate on the rear, it's on the boot itself. The car maker has decided that it's going to attach it to the car or to the boot itself, and it's not going to make it its own plate. So we now need to make it its own plate. So if you go into boot where it is and try and find plate, it's not there, whereas it's actually in the texture of the boot. That's okay. But what we need to do is detach it from the car. So by doing that, you need to hide all, click the boot itself, scroll in, and you can see at the very top it says polygons. Click polygon, click the boot itself, and you're now going to have just the vehicle itself, or just the boot textures. In order to select just the boot, this was just shown for an earlier video, let's get rid of this. What you want to do is try and highlight just around the boot itself, and any added stuff, just make sure you haven't added this in as well. Now what you can see is behind the plate itself has been selected. You can go into different views and try and unselect certain things. So I'm going to hold control, hold, drag, right click, and it removes it that way. And same again, you can do it here as well. Or what you could do is go into buy material at the top, select the ones that are behind it. So a vehicle in GTA normally has vehicle generic spec map, spool spec map, paint 1, 2, 3, 4. These are what GTA reads in order to change the car's color when you're in the city. Now I'm going to select paint 1, and I've selected it, and that will remove everything from behind, because all it is the outside of the car texture. So that will be the thing that changes. There may be other things you've selected as well, and you just have to go down through the list and deselect them as well, just so you have the plate itself. Then you can go into detach and click the detach button, and then it will detach the plate from the boot. And now if I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see it there, and you can see it detaches on its own, and nothing else from behind it disappears. That means we've successfully done it. If it does disappear as well, what you can then do is go into the boot, remove the go into the plate, remove the boot, and look behind to see, take it away, detach it from there, and then you can reattach it to the boot. Now we've got it on its own. We want to make it an extra. If you've got no other extras on the vehicle, you can make it extra _1. If you have, then you make it 2, 3, 4, etc. We don't, so we're going to make it extra 1, and then because it is on its own now, as you can see, if I go onto the boot, when you get rid of or when you open the boot, the plate will remain. You don't want that to happen, because obviously you want it to go up with the boot. So what you'll need to do is drag extra 1 inside the boot, like so. So when the boot now opens, it disappears with it. However, if you don't want it on the boot, because it is quite an ugly place to put it, then obviously go down to find where extra 1 is. Go to move, and then you can drag it wherever you would like. So if we want to put it down here, you then need to move it out of the boot, because if you don't, it will disappear with the boot. So simply just drag it down to the next, and it will sit there now. When you move the boot, it will remain. That is how to successfully make a plate an extra. What you can then do is, if you want to be clever about it and make that a plate that you can put on other vehicles, drag it to the top, put it above the chassis, and then you want to remove the chassis itself, so you're just left with extra 1 and the car spawn. Put it inside the car spawn, and you can rename this plate, and then you want to export it as plate. And then what you'll be able to then do is import it on top of other cars, and you can add that plate onto other cars and rotate it however you want. That is a simple way of adding vehicle plates to a car, removing them from the textures, and of course adding plates and also adding seats to a car. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Please do drop us a subscription on YouTube, or maybe check out some of the other videos, or drop us a follow on Twitch and come watch us live. Twitch.tv/DeggyUK.